I'd been a flight attendant for 18 years. Serving coffee, smiling politely, invisible to everyone in first class. That was my life. Until the day a billionaire hotel mogul's translator didn't show up, and his $10 million deal started falling apart at 30,000 feet. He needed someone who spoke French. Fluently. Urgently. Desperately. I happened to be pouring his coffee when he made that discovery. What happened next changed everything. My career. My life. And eventually, the way he looked at me. This is the story of how I went from serving a billionaire to standing beside him as his equal. All because I spoke the language he needed to hear. If you love stories about second chances, unexpected romance, and women who find their power in the most surprising moments, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Aria's Love Tales for more emotional audiobook stories every week. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment when ordinary lives become extraordinary. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Claire Matiners, and I was 42 years old when my entire life changed on a Tuesday afternoon flight from New York to Paris. I'd been working for Luxair International for nearly 2 decades. I knew every inch of the Airbus A350, every passenger preference, every regulation by heart. I was good at my job. Excellent. Even. But excellent doesn't get you promoted when you're a woman over 40 in an industry that values youth and fresh faces. I'd watched younger colleagues leap past me into training positions, into management roles, into careers that had actual futures. I'd stopped hoping years ago. This was my ceiling. Business class service on international routes. It paid well enough. The benefits were decent. And at 42, with no degree and no other skills besides hospitality and languages, what other options did I have? Our senior flight attendant, Marcus, whistled low when he saw the name. Philippe Beaumont owned the Beaumont Hotel Group. 32 luxury properties across Europe and North America. Forbes estimated his net worth at over $3 billion. Marcus looked at me with raised eyebrows. Here's yours, Claire. Business. Class is your section today. Try not to spill anything on him. I rolled my eyes. In 18 years, I'd served presidents, celebrities, tech billionaires. One more wealthy passenger didn't intimidate me. They all wanted the same things. Privacy. Efficiency. Invisible service. Boarding began at noon. I positioned myself at the business class entrance, greeting passengers with the smile I perfected over nearly 2 decades. Warm but not too familiar. Professional but not cold. Philippe Beaumont was one of the last to board. I recognized him immediately from the photos in business magazines. Tall, maybe 6 feet. Silver grey hair swept back from a strong face. Sharp cheekbones. A jaw that looked like it had been carved from marble. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. But it was his eyes that caught me off guard. Dark brown, almost black. Intense. The kind of eyes that seemed to see everything and miss nothing. He nodded at my greeting but didn't speak. Didn't smile. Just moved past me to his seat with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to explain yourself to anyone. I watched him settle into 2A. He pulled out an iPad immediately, his fingers moving across the screen with focused intensity. There was tension in his shoulders. Something about the way he sat, perfectly still but coiled tight, suggested a man carrying the weight of something significant. I made my rounds through business class, checking that everyone was settled. Philippe Beaumont didn't look up once. When I offered him champagne before takeoff, he declined with a brief shake of his head, his eyes never leaving his iPad. We took off on schedule. The flight to Paris would be 7 hours and 20 minutes. I knew the routine by heart. Beverage service first. Then meal service. Then the long quiet hours where passengers slept or worked, and I moved through the cabin like a ghost, visible only when needed. An hour into the flight, I was preparing the beverage cart when I noticed Philippe Beaumont had received a phone call. Even from the galley, I could see the change in his posture. He'd gone rigid. His free hand was pressed against his forehead. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I recognized stress when I saw it. In this job, you became an expert at reading people. Their moods. Their needs. Their silent requests for help or privacy. When I approached with the cart, he looked up at me for the first time. Really looked at me. Not through me, the way most first-class passengers did. Actually saw me. "Coffee," he said. His voice was deep, slightly accented. French, I realized. Native French with just a hint of something else underneath. Black. 2 sugars. I prepared his coffee exactly as requested, using the heated cup the way I'd been trained. When I set it on his tray table, he was staring at his iPad screen like it had personally betrayed him. "Thank you," he murmured, still distracted. I moved on to the next passenger. But something made me glance back. Philippe Beaumont was rubbing his temples, the coffee forgotten beside him. 2 hours into the flight, I was in the galley preparing meal trays when his call button lit up. I smoothed my uniform and made my way to 2A. He looked up as I approached. This time, there was something different in his expression. Not quite desperation, but close. The polished billionaire facade had cracked just slightly. "I need to ask you something," he said. "It's unusual." I waited, my hands folded professionally in front of me. In 18 years, I'd heard a lot of unusual requests. "Do any of the cabin crew speak French?" he asked. "Fluently, I mean. Native or near native level." Something in my chest shifted. My mother had been born in Lyon. I'd grown up speaking French at home, English everywhere else. It was one of the few things I'd kept from my childhood after she died. The language. The connection to a place I'd never lived but somehow belonged to. "I do," I said. "I speak French fluently." His eyes widened slightly. Just a fraction. But I saw it. The surprise. The reassessment. As if he were seeing me for the first time as something other than a flight attendant. "Fluently," he repeated. "You're certain?" "Oui, Monsieur Beaumont. Je parle couramment. Marmire était française." "Yes, Mr. Beaumont. I speak fluently. My mother was French." Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe. Or hope. He glanced around the cabin, as if checking to see who might overhear, then looked back at me. "I have a situation," he said quietly. "My translator, my assistant, she was supposed to fly with me. She had emergency surgery yesterday. Appendicitis. I have a video conference in 2 hours with a group of French investors. The deal is worth $10 million. And I need someone who can translate. Simultaneously. Business terminology. Financial language." My pulse quickened. This was not a normal request. This was not pouring coffee or arranging blankets. This was something else entirely. "I can try," I said carefully. "But I should tell you, I'm not a professional translator. I don't have formal training in business French." "But you understand it," he pressed. "If I'm discussing hotel acquisitions, property valuations, investment returns, you'd understand the terminology?" I thought about the years I'd spent listening to business class passengers. The hundreds of conversations I'd overheard about deals and mergers and valuations. The French business magazines I read on my layovers to keep my mother's language alive. "Yes," I said. "I'd understand it." He studied me for a long moment. Those dark eyes searching my face for something. Competence. Reliability. Trustworthiness. "What's your name?" he asked. "Claire. Claire Motiners." "Claire," he repeated, as if testing how it sounded. "I'll pay you. Whatever your daily rate is, I'll triple it. This meeting, it cannot fail. Do you understand? If I lose this deal, I lose the flagship property in Paris. The Beaumont Marais. It's been in negotiation for 18 months. The weight of what he was asking settled over me. This wasn't just about translation. This was about his business. His reputation. $10 million riding on whether I could find the right French words for complex financial concepts. I'll help you, I said. But I need to be honest. If there's technical terminology I don't know, I'll tell you immediately. I won't pretend to understand something I don't. He nodded, respect flickering across his face. That's exactly what I need. Honesty. Not someone who will smile and nod and let me fail without warning. He stood then, reaching for his carry-on bag in the overhead compartment. Can you take a break? Come to the back galley. I need to go over the terms of the deal with you before the call. You need to understand what we're negotiating. I glanced toward the galley where Marcus was working. Let me inform the senior attendant. Marcus's eyebrows shot up when I explained the situation. For a moment, I thought he'd say no. That I couldn't just abandon my duties to help a passenger with a business deal, no matter how wealthy he was. But Marcus had been in this job longer than I had. He understood that sometimes, the rules bent for people like Philippe Beaumont. Go, he said. I'll cover your section. But Claire? Don't mess this up. If this goes sideways, it's both our jobs. I followed Philippe Beaumont to the rear galley. It was small, cramped, designed for efficiency, not conversation. But it was private. He pulled out his iPad and a stack of documents, spreading them across the small counter. These are the terms, he said, pointing to a page of dense French text. The investors are offering $10 million for a 40% stake in the Marais property. I want a counter with $10 million for 30%. But they're nervous about the renovations. The cost overruns. The timeline. I scanned the documents. My mother's language flowed through my mind, translating automatically. Property acquisition. Renovation costs. Projected revenues. Market analysis. I understood it all. Every word. Every nuance. I can do this, I said, looking up at him. Something in his expression softened. You're certain? Yes. He exhaled, a long, slow breath that seemed to release some of the tension he'd been carrying. Thank you, Claire Martinez. You have no idea what this means. We spent the next hour going over the deal. He explained the investors. Their concerns. Their negotiation tactics. He tested my vocabulary, throwing French business terms at me rapid fire. I translated them back without hesitation. Hotel occupancy rates. Return on investment. Capital expenditure. Debt-to-equity ratio. Then Du Bois spoke. Long sentences. Complex conditions. But buried in the formal language was the answer we'd been waiting for. I translated for Philippe, keeping my voice steady even as my pulse raced. He says they are prepared to accept your terms. $10 million for 30%. But they want quarterly reports on the renovation progress. And they want representation on the property's advisory board. Philippe's face remained neutral, but I felt him exhale beside me. Relief. Victory. He responded immediately, accepting their conditions, adding a few of his own. The conversation shifted to logistics. Timeline. Contract details. Legal representation. 20 minutes later, the call ended. The screen went dark. And Philippe Beaumont sat very still for a long moment, staring at his now closed laptop. Then he turned to me. And the expression on his face was something I'd never seen from a passenger before. Not gratitude exactly. Something deeper. Recognition. You just saved my company $10 million, he said quietly. And more than that. You saved the Marais. My father's dream was to own a hotel in Paris. In the city where his grandparents were born. This deal, It's not just business. It's legacy. I didn't know what to say. My hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. From the weight of what we'd just done. You're trembling, he noticed. I'm sorry. That must have been intense. I've never done anything like that before, I admitted. Translated a $10 million business deal from a crew rest compartment at 35,000 feet? No, that was a first. He laughed then. An actual laugh. The first genuine expression of happiness I'd seen from him. It transformed his face. Made him look younger. More human. Less like a marble statue of wealth and power. I need to ask you something, he said, his expression becoming serious again. And I want you to think carefully before you answer. My stomach fluttered with nervousness. All right. What are you doing working as a flight attendant? He asked. You have skills, Claire Martinez. Language skills. Business acumen. You understood every word of that negotiation. You caught nuances that even some professional translators would have missed. So why are you serving coffee in business class instead of sitting in business class? The question hit harder than I'd expected. Because it was the question I'd been asking myself for years. The question that kept me awake during layovers in foreign cities. The question I'd stopped asking because the answer was too painful. I'm 42 years old, I said quietly. I don't have a college degree. I've been doing this for 18 years. What else would I do? Anything, he said immediately. Everything. You could do anything. I looked away. It's not that simple. Yes, he insisted, it is. The only reason you believe otherwise is because you've been told you're invisible for so long that you started to believe it. His words settled into my chest like stones. Heavy. True. Painful. I see you, he continued. I saw you the moment you started translating. Not a flight attendant. A woman with extraordinary talent who's been hiding in plain sight. I didn't trust myself to speak. Tears were threatening at the corners of my eyes. After 18 years of being invisible, being seen felt overwhelming. We need to get back, I said, my voice barely steady. Before someone notices we're both gone. Philippe nodded, but he was still watching me with that intense gaze. As if he were trying to memorize my face. We climbed down from the crew rest area separately. Him first, then me a few minutes later. Marcus gave me a questioning look when I returned to the galley, but I just shook my head. I couldn't explain it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The rest of the flight passed in a blur. I performed my duties on autopilot. Serving meals. Collecting trash. Preparing the cabin for landing. All while feeling Philippe Beaumont's eyes on me every time I passed through business class. We landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport at 7:15 p.m. local time. As passengers began gathering their belongings, preparing to disembark, Philippe Beaumont remained seated. He was watching the other passengers file past. Waiting. I was securing the galley when he appeared beside me. Most of the cabin had emptied. Just a few stragglers remained. Claire, he said. Do you have a moment? I glanced at Marcus, who waved me off. Go ahead. We've got this. I followed Philippe to the now empty business class section. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. But instead of just handing it to me, he pulled out a pen and wrote something on the back. This is my direct number, he said, handing me the card. Not my office. Not my assistant. Me. I want you to call me. I stared at the card. Philippe Beaumont. CEO, Beaumont Hotel Group. And on the back, a number written in precise, elegant script. I don't understand, I said. I'm offering you a position, he said simply. Director of International Guest Relations for the Beaumont Hotel Group. You'd be based in Paris. You'd oversee guest services across all our European properties. The position requires someone who understands luxury hospitality, who speaks multiple languages, who can navigate complex cultural situations with grace and intelligence. I couldn't breathe. Mr. Beaumont, I'm not qualified for that. I'm a flight attendant. I've never worked in hotel management. You've spent 18 years mastering the art of hospitality, he countered. You've dealt with demanding, high-net-worth individuals in a confined space where mistakes are magnified. You've navigated international cultures. You've solved problems in real time with limited resources. That's exactly what I need. But I don't have a degree, I protested. I don't have experience in. You have something better than a degree, he interrupted. You have talent. And today, you proved you can perform under impossible pressure. You saved a $10 million deal with no preparation, no training, nothing but your own skill and intelligence. That's not something I can teach. That's not something that comes from a university. I looked down at the business card in my hand. It felt impossibly heavy. Like it was made of something more than paper. Why? I asked. Why would you do this for me? You don't know me. Philippe was quiet for a moment. My father started with nothing, he said finally. He was a dishwasher in a hotel in Marseille. He worked his way up. Became a porter. Then front desk. Then manager. He saved every franc for 10 years to buy his first property. A tiny bed and breakfast in Avignon. He understood that talent exists everywhere. But opportunity doesn't. He told me once that the greatest tragedy in business isn't failed investments. It's wasted potential. People who never get the chance to show what they can do because someone decided they didn't fit the right profile, didn't have the right credentials, didn't look the part. You're offering me this because of your father? I asked softly. I'm offering you this because you earned it, he corrected. What you did today, that wasn't charity. That was excellence. And I don't let excellence walk away when I find it. I arrived in Paris on a Thursday in late September. The apartment Philippe's company had arranged was in the 7th arrondissement. 5th floor walk-up with a view of the Eiffel Tower. Small but perfect. With furniture and everything I'd need. There was a note on the kitchen counter in elegant handwriting. Welcome home. Your office is expecting you Monday morning at 9 a.m. The address is below. Spend the weekend exploring the city. Learning its rhythms. This is your home now. Make it yours. PB. I read the note 3 times. Home. Paris was home now. That weekend, I walked for hours. Through the Marais district where the Beaumont property was being renovated. Along the Seine. Through Montmartre. I ate pastries and drank wine at sidewalk cafes. I spoke French with shopkeepers who smiled at my Chicago accent wrapped in my mother's Lyon pronunciation. Monday morning arrived too quickly. I dressed carefully. Professional but not overdone. Navy dress. Simple jewelry. Sensible heels. The uniform of a woman trying to look like she belonged in an executive role. The Beaumont Paris corporate office was in a beautiful Haussmann building near the Arc de Triomphe. All marble and gold and crystal chandeliers. The kind of elegant power that old money builds. I was shown to a corner office on the 4th floor. My office. With my name on a brass plate beside the door. Claire Motiners, Director of International Guest Relations. A woman in her 30s appeared in my doorway. Chic haircut. Perfect posture. Professional smile. Bonjour, Madame Motiners. I'm Sophie Renaud, your assistant. Monsieur Beaumont asked me to help you get oriented today. He's in meetings all morning but has blocked off lunch to meet with you personally. My assistant. I had an assistant. Sophie walked me through my responsibilities. Overseeing guest services across all 12 European properties. Handling VIP guest issues. coordinating with property managers on service standards, traveling regularly to each location for quality assessments. It was overwhelming. Terrifying. Exactly what I'd been afraid I couldn't do. At noon, Sophie led me to a private dining room on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Paris. A table set for two. Philippe was already there, standing by the window. He turned when I entered. And for a moment, we just looked at each other. This wasn't a flight attendant and a passenger anymore. This was an employee and her employer. Or maybe something more complicated than that. Claire, he said, smiling. Welcome to Beaumont. Thank you, I replied. For all of this. The apartment, the office, the opportunity. You don't need to thank me, he said. You earned this position. Now you just need to prove you can excel in it. Saturday. Lunch was served by silent staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Philippe asked about my weekend. My apartment. If I needed anything. But there was something else beneath the polite conversation. An awareness. The memory of sitting shoulder to shoulder in that tiny crew rest compartment. Of sharing an earbud. Of him saying, I see you. The Murray property opens in 6 months, Philippe said as we finished dessert. I want you to oversee the guest services planning. Work with the property manager. Design the service protocols. Hire and train the staff. This will be your first major project. That's a lot of responsibility for my first 6 months, I said carefully. Yes, he agreed. It is. But I have confidence in you. And more than that, I have something I don't have with most of my team. I have proof. I've seen you perform under pressure. I know what you're capable of when everything is on the line. Some of it, Philippe admitted. But some of it I learned from you. I blinked. From me? You spent 18 years being invisible, he said. And you didn't become bitter. You didn't stop being excellent at your job. You maintained your dignity. Your kindness. Your commitment to doing things right even when no one was watching. That's real integrity. That's what I want this company to embody. We stood in silence for a moment. The half-finished lobby around us. Paris evening light filtering through the windows. Claire, Philippe said quietly. I need to tell you something. And I need you to know I won't hold it against you professionally regardless of how you respond. My heart was suddenly pounding. All right. 26:00. The day I met you on that flight, he began. When you translated for me, I saw something extraordinary. Not just your skill. Your presence. The way you carried yourself. The intelligence in your eyes. I knew immediately I wanted you on my team. He paused. But over these past 3 months, working with you, watching you transform into the executive I knew you could be, learning who you are beyond that initial impression. Claire, it's become something more than professional respect. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. I'm attracted to you, Philippe said simply. More than that. I'm fascinated by you. The way you think. The way you approach problems. The person you are when you forget to be careful. Philippe, I started, but he held up a hand. Let me finish. I know this is complicated. I'm your employer. There's a power dynamic. And I'm 60 years old, while you're 42. I understand if you don't feel the same way. I understand if this makes you uncomfortable. But I couldn't keep pretending. Not when I look forward to our meetings more than anything else in my day. You think the age difference matters to me? I said, finding my voice. Philippe, you changed my entire life. You saw me when no one else did. You gave me a chance when everyone else had decided I'd reached my ceiling. Do you really think I care that you're 18 years older? His eyes widened slightly. Then you? I feel it too, I admitted. I've been feeling it for months. Every time you smile at something I've accomplished. Every time you push me to think bigger. Every time you tell me I'm capable of more than I believe. But I was afraid to say anything. Because what if I'm wrong? What if this is just gratitude? What if I'm confusing appreciation for what you've done with actual feelings? Philippe reached out, his hand cupping my cheek. The gesture was so gentle. So different from the commanding CEO I worked with every day. Does this feel like gratitude? He asked quietly. No, I whispered. He leaned in slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. To say no. To keep the professional boundaries intact. I didn't pull away. Our lips met softly. Tentatively. A kiss that was more question than answer. Are we really doing this? Is this real? I pulled back first. Not because I wanted to stop, but because we were standing in the middle of his hotel property, where staff could walk in at any moment. We need to be careful, I said. People will talk. They'll say I slept my way into this position. That you promoted me because. I don't care what people say, Philippe interrupted. I know the truth. You earned your position. And whatever happens between us personally, that doesn't change your professional value. But I care, I said. I worked too hard to build credibility here. I won't let our relationship undermine that. Philippe nodded slowly. You're right. We'll be discreet. Professional in the office. But Claire? He smiled. I'd like to take you to dinner. Not a working dinner. An actual date. Is that something you'd want? It's not about wealth. Not about power. It's about seeing potential in places other people overlook. It's about creating spaces where people feel valued. Where they are seen. You've become essential to me, Philippe continued. Not just professionally. Personally. You've made me believe in second chances. In new beginnings. In the possibility that you can find love when you're not even looking for it. I need you to know something, he said. I'm not asking you to stay because you work for me. I'm asking you to stay because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Not as my employee. As my partner. In everything. Tears stung my eyes. Philippe, I never thought I'd have this. Any of this. The career. The respect. The love. I thought I'd peaked. That my life would be what it had always been. And instead, he prompted. Instead, I'm standing in a Paris penthouse with a man I love, in a career I never imagined, living a life I never dreamed was possible. So you'll stay? Philippe asked. Not just in Paris. Not just with a company. But with me. Yes, I said. To all of it. Yes. He kissed me then. Properly. Without worrying about being seen or keeping up appearances. A kiss that was promise and celebration and relief all at once. I have something for you, Philippe said, pulling back. He reached into his jacket pocket and removed a small box. Inside was a key. An old-fashioned brass key. What's this? I asked. A key to the Marais, he said. But not just any key. This was my father's. He carried it for 40 years. The key to his first property. He gave it to me before he died. Told me to give it to someone who understood what it really meant to build something that lasts. Philippe, I can't, I started. You can, he insisted. You do understand. That's why you're here. That's why you're mine. I held the key carefully, feeling the weight of its history. Its meaning. Thank you, I whispered. For the key. For the career. For seeing me. For everything. Thank you, Philippe replied. For saving my deal. For exceeding every expectation. For reminding me what excellence looks like. For loving me despite all my complications. We stood together in that penthouse suite, overlooking Paris. Two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. A flight attendant and a billionaire. a woman who'd been invisible and a man who'd learned to truly see. 6 months ago, I'd been serving coffee in business class, believing I'd reached my ceiling, accepting that this was all my life would ever be. Now I was standing in a Paris penthouse I'd helped create, with a career I'd earned, and a man who loved me not for what I could do for him, but for who I was. "I love you, Claire Matiners," Philippe said quietly. "I need you permanently. Not temporarily. Not professionally. Permanently." "I love you too," I replied. "And yes, permanently sounds perfect." We stayed in that penthouse until dawn, talking about the future, about expansion plans for Beaumont, about the life we were building together, about how one moment, one chance encounter, one decision to speak up and offer help can change everything. My mother used to tell me that the French language was a bridge between worlds. I never understood what she meant until that day on the airplane, when I spoke French and saved Philippe's deal, when I crossed from one life into another, when I became visible. But it wasn't just the language that was the bridge. It was courage. It was saying yes when everything in me wanted to say no. It was believing, finally, that I deserved more than I'd been settling for. Philippe took my hand as the sun rose over Paris. "What are you thinking about?" "That I was 42 years old when my life finally began," I said. "That it's never too late for a second chance. That sometimes the person you're meant to be is waiting on the other side of one brave decision." "And was it brave?" he asked. "Calling me back?" "Terrifying," I admitted. "But worth it. All of it worth it." We watched the sunrise together. Two people who'd found each other at exactly the right moment. Who'd built something real from one impossible afternoon at 30,000 feet. And I thought about all the women like me, working jobs that didn't see their potential, believing they'd peaked, accepting less than they deserved. If they could hear my story, I'd tell them this: it's never too late. You're never too old. Your ceiling is an illusion. And somewhere, someone is waiting to see you for who you really are. You just have to be brave enough to let them. I'd been a flight attendant for 18 years. Serving coffee, smiling politely, invisible to everyone in first class. That was my life. Until the day a billionaire hotel mogul's translator didn't show up, and his $10 million deal started falling apart at 30,000 feet. He needed someone who spoke French. Fluently. Urgently. Desperately. I happened to be pouring his coffee when he made that discovery. What happened next changed everything. My career. My life. And eventually, the way he looked at me. This is the story of how I went from serving a billionaire to standing beside him as his equal. All because I spoke the language he needed to hear. If you love stories about second chances, unexpected romance, and women who find their power in the most surprising moments, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Aria's Love Tales for more emotional audiobook stories every week. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment when ordinary lives become extraordinary. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Claire Matiners, and I was 42 years old when my entire life changed on a Tuesday afternoon flight from New York to Paris. I'd been working for Luxair International for nearly 2 decades. I knew every inch of the Airbus A350, every passenger preference, every regulation by heart. I was good at my job. Excellent. Even. But excellent doesn't get you promoted when you're a woman over 40 in an industry that values youth and fresh faces. I'd watched younger colleagues leap past me into training positions, into management roles, into careers that had actual futures. I'd stopped hoping years ago. This was my ceiling. Business class service on international routes. It paid well enough. The benefits were decent. And at 42, with no degree and no other skills besides hospitality and languages, what other options did I have?